All right, so thanks again for joining us this afternoon. We're going to be introducing some information about our ESL endorsement, and we know no one better to make that introduction than our colleague, Dr. Cathy Reischl, who I am going to hand it over to now.
Thank you. Well, great to see your faces. I know many of you have already made it through that application process. Some of you are still in process. Congratulations to those of you who were able to get on it early this year, and we're looking forward to working with all of you. We love LMAC and secondary MAC interns. We just love you. We know that you are people who have very deliberately decided to be teachers, and there's nothing like, as a teacher educator, there's nothing like working with people who really, really want to be doing this work. So we're really excited to have you here. I am the ESL coordinator, and I am working diligently to make sure that you know a lot about this option for elementary and secondary MAC. So I want to be pretty brief today and give you some information about what it means to choose this option. So I'll just start right in. And you'll see you're seeing my slides on the screen, right? Can you give me a thumbs up if you see my slides? Cool. Soวันนี้อยากจะสอนทุกคนที่นี่เกี่ยวกับ the ESL program แล้วก็ฉันคิดว่าครูทุกคนต้องรู้เกี่ยวกับนักเรียนแล้วก็อ่านเขียนพูดคุยกันเกี่ยวกับเพื่อนเป็นต้องทุกคนเพราะว่าอยากทุกคนดีใจแล้วก็น้ำใจแล้วก็ทุกเขียนเกี่ยวกับหนังสือแล้วห้องเรียนทุกคนนะคะ Now my guess is that you probably had a little bit of cognitive dissonance there and felt like, what the hell? Why is she doing that right at the beginning of this presentation? I can't resist. I think it's really important to remind people what it feels like to be smart, directed, have goals, want to learn things, and then have somebody stand in front of you and just assault you with sounds that are not that meaningful. There's something going on here with the ESL endorsement. You could hear me talk about that. You didn't know what language I was speaking. Does anybody know what language I was speaking? You can just sing it out if you know. Anybody?
Mandarin, by chance?
Pardon?
Mandarin?
It's close to that. You have a good ear because it was another tonal language. It was Thai. I worked in the refugee camps in Thailand for a long time in my 20s. And so I'm a Thai speaker, which has served me surprisingly well in lots of different multiple language contexts. We are adding ESL to the possibilities for your certification and endorsement because we have so many kids in every American public school classroom who come with this wonderful resource of a language other than English. And then they get in the classroom and they need some special supports to really be able to continue to learn academically while they're learning English. So that's the emphasis in our program. It's really on teaching everyday teachers, elementary and secondary, many of whom actually decide to get the endorsement, but don't decide to do ESL teaching. They're just regular classroom teachers, but have this specialized knowledge about ESL. And they can help those students in their classrooms to continue to learn academically while they're learning English. All right. Many of our students also become ESL teachers, so there's several options there. Let me just give you some details. So why do people do this? It's 20 credits. There's a few of those credits that are already built into your program, but it is extra work. Why would you do it? Lots of people really take on this idea that I'm going to have multilingual kids in my classroom. The numbers are only increasing. And they have been over the last 16 years that we've had this program. I want to be able to not only serve those kids in my school, but also have my colleagues in my school think of me as a resource and a person that can work with them to support the multilingual kids. I will say too, that almost everything you learn about supporting multilingual kids also supports other kids in the classroom. You know, we do a lot of work with adding visuals to instruction, for example. And adding visuals to instruction just supports every single solitary kid, including kids that do well. So you can be this person who can serve all kids better. Many people are motivated to do this for reasons of social justice. They feel like it's important to be able to equitably serve all kids. We see it improving people's marketability as teachers. I think you all are in a very good position. I'm in my 20th year in this program, and I've never seen such an open job market. And that's been the case for the last 3 years. People have been choosing between jobs as we work with them in the summer. I get to be very involved with people in the summer because they're doing the practicum for the ESL endorsement in the summer right after their program, finishing up about July 9th. So we're right there with people when they're interviewing, and we get to have lunch with them and practice interviewing with them, or have that fun conversation. The greatest problem of all, I've got 2 different job offers. Which one do you think would be the one to go with? So we see it improving marketability. Principals call us and say, who's still looking, and which ones of those people have the ESL endorsement? Because ESL, the multilingual kids are everywhere. I should say too that ESL is a very dated term. It's a term that the state uses, and that's why we currently call this the ESL endorsement program. It'll be on your certification as an ESL endorsement. People much more frequently use the term emergent bilingual or multilingual student, English development students. There are many, many different terms, so you'll hear me use multiple different terms in this presentation. Finally, lots of people are thinking about teaching internationally. And certainly if you have that in mind, having the ESL endorsement can improve your chances. There's a wonderful international job fair that happens in the end of January, beginning of February every year in all places. It happens at the University of Northern Iowa, but it's one of the biggest ones in the country. And we usually send a van full of U of M people, and typically they get several offers at this job fair, international job fair. So you may be thinking about that. In the past, we only offered this program to LMAC students. In the last 3 years, we've also opened it up to our undergrad students and the secondary MAC students as well. So we're happy to have that range. Let me go on. What are the requirements for doing this? So the one thing that people sometimes worry about is the first requirement, that is a requirement from the state, that you have to have some evidence of learning a world language. We are very flexible about this. I endorse this idea that you need to have had the experience of learning a language other than English. But there are many ways to do that. We give a broad framework for this requirement as your experience needs to be the equivalent of 2 college semesters. You might have had 4 years of Spanish in high school. You might have had, you might have grown up in a home where you spoke Romanian or Arabic or another world language. There are many, many ways that you could provide evidence of learning a world language. I've even had music majors who had to study multiple different languages, but none more than one semester. They had studied German, French, and Spanish because they were, this particular woman was an opera singer and she needed to learn how to do the pronunciations, but she really had to work on what it means to do that kind of study of language. There is an MTTC ESL endorsement test. Those are the tests the state requires, and we have people take those tests after the spring term courses, and I'll walk through those courses in just a sec. People always pass that test. We've actually never had anybody not pass that test. You have to be making ongoing satisfactory progress in your regular certification, in your elementary or secondary certification, to add the ESL. So we check in with the coordinators of the program as we're moving into the spring and summer terms. And then there is this additional coursework that you take at the end of your LMAC or secondary MAC year in the spring and summer half terms at the end of your program. By the way, these pictures are here to entice you and just make you think, well, that looks interesting. What's going on there? The practicum for the program takes place in our partnership schools, Mitchell and Scarlett. And it's a really wonderful summer program called SESLA, the Summer ESL Academy. It's for 4th through 8th grade students. So it encompasses both elementary and secondary students. I put in pictures from various years. We often have an emphasis on the arts. This was a year we were talking about arts and identity, and we did this amazing mural at Scarlett Middle School. You can see her doing that work there. We worked with the Neutral Zone 2 summers where the kids were doing spoken word poetry and rap, and getting to record their raps in the studio at the Neutral Zone, which is a youth center here in Ann Arbor. We've done science, amazing science units in the summer. We try to do an academic program to support kids to really feel confident when they return to school in the fall, confident in both their academic literacy skills and also in their ability to work with peers in English so that they can really continue to learn academically while they're learning English. So that's what the pictures are when I've thrown them in here. It's an endorsement. What you add is an endorsement. It's like adding a 20 credit minor to your program, okay? You'd be endorsed to teach ESL at the same grade, the grade levels K-8 if you're earning elementary certification, or 6-12 if you're earning secondary. That doesn't completely match your elementary certification. I'm not sure actually about, I don't know if there's changes to the secondary grade bands there, but those are the levels that you are endorsed to work with if you were being hired as an ESL teacher. Another important thing is to think about where you're going to want to end up, or the many places you may want to teach over your career. That's one of the best things about teaching is everybody needs teachers. You can teach everywhere. In my own career, I've taught all over the world. I mean, I've taught in India and New Zealand and the Philippines and several other places, and then in several places in the US. And having this teacher certification has always meant that it was a set of open doors. Having the ESL, additional knowledge and endorsement has just made so many things possible for me in my own work, both as a classroom teacher and as a professor and a teacher educator. When you do apply for certification in another state, they often have slightly different requirements for ESL, but we have found that most people don't have to take any extra courses. Usually the courses are set up differently or named differently, so you always want to save all your syllabi and materials from your courses so that you can say, well, I didn't have a class that was named in the particular way that they name it in Washington State, but here is what the content of the course was, and here are the assignments that I completed. And then people will do that kind of assessment of your work. So important to be thinking ahead about things like that. I always recommend to people that they save everything from their classes anyway. It's kind of, I think when things are online, especially, we're a little less likely to do that. And you want to make sure, especially to save syllabi and your assignments. Let me talk to you a little bit about the classes. So this differs a little bit for LMAC and secondary MAC only in when the classes take place. So there's a class on language development and second language learning. For the secondary MAC, all of the secondary MAC people take that class, and it takes place in the fall. For LMAC, that class is only for the ESL people. And LMACers tend to, they usually are about half of the LMACers who do the ESL endorsement. We're actually getting up to that number with secondary MAC now too. It hasn't been quite the tradition in secondary MAC because we've only offered it to secondary MAC for 3 years, but usually about half the people who are doing LMAC and secondary MAC are doing the ESL. Education 490/407 is a class that all the LMACers take, but only the SecMac ESL people take, and that takes place in the winter term. I'm sure you're wondering right now if these classes will be online or if they'll be in person. And, we're wondering that too. The level of ambiguity right now is a challenge to everybody, and it just is going to remain challenging. But one thing we have found is that there are aspects of these ESL courses in particular that work really well online. And I am pretty convinced that we are going to continue to have particularly these classes that take place during the semester when you're doing your student teaching. I think we'll probably end up keeping those online because they've worked really well. So there'll be a combo. I'm pretty convinced we're going to at least be hybrid in the fall, especially the way the vaccinating is going. So I'm feeling hopeful. 592 is like a methods course. And when we talk about methods courses, we're talking about, yeah, but what do you do? What do you actually do? 490 is a methods course too. That's the class where we specifically focus on different content areas and say, what's hard about social studies classes for multilingual students? Well, one thing that's hard is there's a lot of background knowledge that just comes from living in a place and participating even tangentially in a democracy. If you come from a place that is organized very differently, you don't have that background knowledge. So what do we need to do as classroom teachers? Not only to catch people up, but also to say, what is it that you know about how governments and ways of life are organized that you could share? We always want to start from a position of, what does this kid know? And how can we value that and actually have this kid fully participate in a learning setting? There's a class on education in a multilingual society, which is a really excellent class around the history of educating multilingual kids in this country and the challenges in present day. There's a class about leadership and advocacy practices, 595. That's another spring class, and that class is really about how do you really take up a leadership role, whether you're a regular classroom teacher who has ESL background, or whether you're the ESL or English language development teacher in your school. How do you actually bring others into the work of educating all kids, rather than constantly responding to colleagues who say things like, one of your ESL kids is in my class, how are you going to get them through? That's not what we want. We want everybody to be able to really construct teaching in ways that are accessible. And then there's the practicum I talked about, which is takes place in the summer half term. That's 3 credits in the summer half term. And that's full-time for 3 weeks. And then there's 2 days at the beginning of it where we have 2 days where you work with mentor teachers. What people in MAC programs like about the summer work is that you've already completed your student teaching at that time. So you are, I always say people look much taller at that point. It's like they go into their student teaching and they're like, ah, and they come out of that student teaching and they're just kind of tall and confident. And we really see you in a whole different way at that point in the program. You are colleagues with the mentor teachers in the summer program. It's a very collegial relationship. You're co-teaching, you're teaming with those people. And it works very well. I mean, people feel a lot of ownership of both the curriculum and of the teaching itself. Last summer, we did it online. We did the practicum. We had 375 kids. The most kids we've ever had in SESLA, I think, has been 225. So it was a really, really big program, but it actually worked. And we're doing it probably hybrid this summer. I would almost be sure that next summer we will be in person. And again, we'll be doing the kinds of work that is very interactive, very project-based. Secondary people work with the middle school kids, and elementary people work with the 4th, 5th graders, sometimes leaking a little bit into the 6th grade. Those are kids that will be entering those grades in the fall. So that's the coursework. And I am going to, I've asked Tim to share the slides with you. I won't walk through specifically when these various things take place. I think you can see this. There's an LMAC slide and also a secondary MAC slide. this is something for you to be thinking about right now and imagining whether or not you'd like to add this coursework to your program. We ask you in August, you come to the program in June, take those first courses, start to get your feet wet, and then you'll receive an online application to the ESL endorsement. We ask you at that point to fill that out if you're interested, to indicate your world language experience, and then the coordinator would send back a note to you saying, yeah, you qualify, we hope you'll do this. And then you decide, we're hoping that that's your decision point, because we have to do some planning about how many course sections we're going to have and things like that. But really, you have to make a firm decision by the beginning of the winter term. So that's how that works. It's a very simple process. It's nothing like applying to LMAC. It's like a 5-minute Google Doc, Google form that you fill out. Anyway, that is in a nutshell what the ESL endorsement program is about. The on those 2 slides for LMAC and secondary MAC, LMAC takes a full term in the spring anyway. So adding the ESL courses in the spring does not increase your tuition. You would have already been paying for a full spring half term. Secondary MAC does not typically have a full time tuition in the spring term. So if you're adding the ESL endorsement and you're in secondary MAC, you have to pay the full-time tuition in the spring term. And then everybody pays for just 3 credits in the summer half term. Okay. Those costs, if you want to look up the costs, you look on the tuition page in the registrar's office, and you can see what the costs are this year. So you can kind of have in mind what that would be about. Certainly financial aid is available for those terms as well. So naturally, this all goes very fast for me and probably very slow for you, but are there questions that you'd like to just sing out that I could answer at this time?
Hi, Cathy.
Hi.
My name is V. Kennedy. I'm admitted for SecMac.
Can
you speak to potentially international placements, have people placed into Fulbright, Peace Corps, et cetera, after completing this program or other like programs?
Yeah, a lot of people, as I said, have gone to this international job fair, and that's a job fair where there's usually more than 100 schools from all over the world represented there. And they are reputable schools. They're schools that participate in things like the International Baccalaureate program, or are certified through other international systems. Lots of people get jobs in those kinds of schools. It used to be the case that people would say you'd need 2 years of experience in the US before they would hire you internationally. We don't find that's the case anymore. Other people have done things like there are programs for teaching English in Japan. There are actually lots of government programs. Spain offers a program like that.
Been there.
Oh, okay. We often get people who've been in Peace Corps come into the program after having been in a teaching role and wanting to actually learn what they wish they knew when they were in Peace Corps. But we've had other people go into other kinds of volunteer programs or nonprofits after our program. I think there are certainly Fulbright. Actually, one of my former students, who is one of the teacher leaders actually at CESLA in the summer, just applied for a Fulbright, and I wrote her a letter of recommendation. She's an amazing person. She teaches here in Ann Arbor, and she's been teaching for about 5 years. So yeah, I think there are multiple opportunities, and some of them are governmental, some of them are through nonprofits, others are through private schools. We have a whole list of people who are teaching abroad, and we often just put you in touch with one or more of those folks. There were 3 undergrads 2 or 3 years ago, I guess it was 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, maybe Tim remembers, who went to that job fair together, and they all got jobs at the same school, which was pretty fun. They're in I think, in the United Arab Emirates at an international school. So there are a lot of opportunities, and certainly if you've got the flexibility to do international work, I just think it's so helpful to get out of context and have that comparative experience of being in another culture, in school settings that are similar but different, and help you question in really critical, important ways. Why do we do things the way we do? Yeah. So I think there's lots of good opportunity. Does that help you a little bit, Bea?
Yes, that was very helpful. It looks like Ethan has a question also. That's just what I see on my screen.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to ask about, you spoke upon like governmental teaching positions. I know that from the past what I've looked at for like, for example, Spain, there's a lot of like internship opportunities for postgraduates to go to Spain and be like contracted for a year.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Education. Is that kind of like what you mean by like governmental?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. My own son looked into that and almost went to Mallorca, which would be a marvelous thing to do. I kept encouraging him, and then he got a different job. But yeah, and I think there are opportunities in South America, in Europe, in Southeast Asia, in Asia. There's a lot of different kinds of programs like that. As a, you will be certified. Many people who are part of those programs are not certified, and then they end up being in positions where they are not making a teacher salary. They're sort of in a volunteer kind of role. If you wanted to be stepping into a role where you had a contract that included things like health insurance and housing and maybe travel several times a year to your home country. It's one of the advantages of getting hired as a real teacher in an international school setting. And I often talk about that with people as they're looking for the next adventure. The next adventure is even more fun if you feel some security by getting paid well. Of course, that's like a mother of a 30-year-old and a 28-year-old saying that. So I'll say that, you pretending to be your mother for a moment.
Thank you so much for that. I've been looking into like teaching internationally. I think that this would be an awesome opportunity to try to get my foot in the water. So
yeah, and the communities of teachers in international schools, it can be just an amazing experience to be part of a community like that. I taught at a small school in India for my student teaching, actually, many years ago, literally in 1979. That's a long time ago. But the community of teachers that I met there and who took us in, the 4 student teachers that were there, those folks became part of my life forever. And I taught at a university in New Zealand for a while. That connection got made through the teachers I met in India who were from New Zealand. I mean, those kinds of experience beget other experiences. Yeah. Tim, I want to check in with you about our time. I don't want to, if they have the next thing coming up. Are you still there, Tim?
I am. We don't have another campus preview days event bookended with this, but I do want to make sure that people know if they have something else they need to go to. This event is going to be recorded, so anything you miss will end up online. And additionally, Cathy's email is in the handouts that were shared with you if you're unable to ask a question today.
Yeah, I'm always happy to answer emails or talk on the phone. Actually, I really like to talk on the phone, so we could do that too. Other questions that you'd like to ask right now? This is one of the things we learned in LMAC and secondary MAC is wait time. You'll develop a personal tune that you hum inside your head. kiss you too. You know how they always told us to sing happy birthday while we were washing our hands at the beginning of the pandemic? You'll have a similar song. Well, I hope you'll really consider this. I think that I'll mention one other thing about why it could be useful to you to consider this. It's very efficient to add the ESL endorsement during our program. We're one of the very few programs where you can actually do this while you're getting your initial certification. And it doesn't cost that much more. It does cost a little bit more, but it doesn't cost that much more. If you were out there teaching and you just realized, oh my gosh, you know, a third of my students in every one of my classrooms is multilingual. I need to learn more about this. And that would not be unusual at all, especially in Southeast Michigan or in Oakland County. Or really so many places in the United States of America. If you decided to do that after you got certified, you'd probably be doing it at a local university, course by course, and paying for those courses. U of M tuition, of course, is a challenge for everybody. But some of the U of M tuition is folded into the rest of your program, whether you're elementary or secondary here. And you're finishing with the endorsement in place rather than having to do it in subsequent summers or taking a course while you're in your first years of teaching too. So there is a kind of efficiency that works. That said, if you have this interest and you just feel like, you know, I can't add it into this year. I have a busy life and I'm already starting to think about how am I going to manage the intensity of these two programs. There is intensity in both elementary and secondary MAC. It's a good kind of intensity because there's nothing like really having this amazing year of focus. But if you find that it's just not possible right now, you could add this in the future too. But there is a kind of efficiency to getting it done during this work in your LMAC or secondary MAC program. Yeah, so maybe that will wrap it up there for now, Tim. And people who have additional questions or just want to talk about specifics, I'm happy to be in conversation. I really am, either by email or by phone, or we could do a Zoom. I've managed to make it through this whole meeting without my cat crying outside the door. I told my husband, please pet him the whole time. He just likes to be right next to me. He's my Zoom cat. Great to see your faces. I'm actually scrolling through you right now, so I can, I don't know if I'd recognize you with a mask on at Trader Joe's or someplace like that, but I look forward to seeing you this summer as you start up, and thank you for your interest today.
And thanks for taking time to attend another one of our Campus Previews Days events. We look forward to seeing you at others over the next several days. Thank you to Cathy and to all of you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Cathy. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Thank you.